Before history was recorded in ink, there was only the memory of Phyrea, the fire of a city burned to ash, and the fire of a face that launched 1,000 ships. We speak of Helen as a prize, an object of desire, a ghost of the ancient world, but to the Greeks, she was the terrifying embodiment of beauty itself, a force of nature as devastating as a storm at sea, capable of toppling empires not with armies, but with a single glance. To understand her, we must look to the misty heights of Mount Olympus, where the old gods reign. This is a world where the line between mortal and divine is drawn in blood, where the winds obey the breath of Poseidon, and where the whims of Zeus dictate the rise and fall of kings. It is a world of stark, bronze-sharp violence and ethereal, uncanny magic. Here, a mortal man is but a plaything for the immortals, and his glory is bought with the currency of his inevitable death. This is Greece, the archaic age, a landscape of sun-bleached marble and roaring surf, where honor is everything and the most beautiful woman in the world is about to become the curse of an entire civilization. Helen was not born of woman. She was a daughter of Zeus, father of gods and men, who descended upon the mortal Queen Leda in the guise of a swan. From this unnatural union, Helen hatched, not from a womb, but from an egg, a clue to her otherworldly nature. She was not merely human. She was semi-divine, a creature of such terrifying perfection that she grew up to be a woman whose face could stop a war and start one. Her beauty was not soft. It was a weapon. In her youth, she was besieged by suitors, a legion of Grecia's greatest kings, and Heroisa, Odysseus with his cunning mind, Ajax with his shield of bronze, and Agamemnon, the lord of men. They came to Sparta, seeking her hand. To prevent bloodshed in the palace, the wily Odysseus devised a pact. All suitors must swear an oath to defend the chosen husband against any who would slight him. The lot fell to Menelaus, the king of Sparta. He was a good man, powerful and wealthy, but compared to Helen, he was a candle beside the sun. He took her as his queen, and for a time, there was peace. She bore him a daughter, Hermione. The great vault of fate seemed to settle, but the gods do not let sleeping dogs lie. The trouble began with a spiteful goddess, Eris, who cast a golden apple into a wedding feast on Olympus. Upon it was inscribed, "To the fairest." 3 goddesses claimed the prize: Hera, queen of heaven; Athena, wise in war; and Aphrodite, the weaver of desire. They sought a judge, and they found him on the slopes of Mount Ida, a mortal shepherd named Paris, a prince of the fallen city of Troy. Paris was young and vain. The goddesses bribed him. Hera offered power. Athena offered wisdom and victory in battle. But Aphrodite, the architect of desire, offered him the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris, a man blinded by lust, gave the apple to Aphrodite. He did not know then that the woman he was promised was already another man's wife. And so, the trap was sprung. Paris sailed to Sparta as a guest of Menelaus. He was welcomed into the king's home, fed at his table, given the sanctuary of Greek hospitality. But when Menelaus left for Crete to attend his grandfather's funeral, Paris broke the sacred laws of the guest. He did not steal a cup of gold. He stole the queen. There is a version of the tale, whispered by some poets, that Helen went willingly, enchanted by Aphrodite, stepping onto the Trojan ship and leaving her daughter behind without a backward glance. Others say she was taken by force, a victim of the gods' cruel game. But the result was the same. The golden vessel set sail for the distant shores of Ilium, carrying the queen away to the high walls of Troy. When Menelaus returned and found his halls empty, his grief turned to a cold, towering rage. He went to his brother Agamemnon, the high king of Mycenae. Together, They summoned the Oath of Tyndareus. The kings who had once competed for Helena's hand now marched to reclaim her. They gathered a fleet of 1,000 ships, the greatest armada the world had ever seen, black holes cutting the wine-dark sea, driven by the breath of Zeus and the fury of men. For 10 long years, the Greeks besieged the high walls of Troy. For 10 years, men died screaming in the dust, their blood soaking the plains, all for one woman. Homer, the blind bard of antiquity, paints a picture of a world drenched in blood, where heroes fight not for glory, but to possess the shadow of Helen. On the walls of Troy, the elders sat, white-bearded and wise. When they saw Helen walking the battlements, shimmering like a goddess in her robes, they whispered to one another, "Small wonder that the Trojans and Achaeans should endure so long and suffer such pain. She is dreadfully like the immortal goddess to look on." They knew the price of her beauty was their annihilation, yet they did not blame her. She was the calamity, they were merely the victims. Inside the city, the love between Paris and Helen curdled. Paris was weak, a dandy who preferred his bow to the heavy shield of a warrior. Helen mocked him, comparing him unfavorably to her first husband, her heart torn between shame, desire, and the terrifying knowledge that thousands of men were dying because of her face. She was a prisoner of the walls, hating the war, yet unable to leave. She was the cynosure of all eyes, the face that launched 1,000 ships. But she was also the most lonely creature in the world, hated by the Greeks for her betrayal and pitted by the Trojans for the doom she brought. The climax of the saga is not a battle of strength, but a trick of mind. The Greeks, unable to breach the walls, built a hollow horse of wood, hiding their best warriors inside, and sailed away, leaving the offering on the shore. The Trojans, foolish with victory, dragged the horse inside their city. That night, the Greeks emerged. They set fire to the city. They slaughtered the men. They enslaved the women. The grandeur of Troy, the city of Priam, was reduced to smoking rubble. In the chaos of that final night, Menelaus sought his wife. He found her, cowering among the smoke and the corpses. There is a terrible moment in the tale where Menelaus, sword drawn, stands over her. Some say he intended to kill her for her treachery. But then the divine spell broke. He saw her not as a traitor, but as the woman he had loved. He dropped his sword. He took her by the wrist and led her out of the burning city. The war was over. The ships turned homeward, sailing the treacherous seas back to Greece. Helen returned to Sparta, not as a queen of triumph, but as a survivor of a catastrophe. She lived out her days with Menelaus, a silent, fading presence in a world that had moved on. To the ancients, Helen was not merely a person. She was a symbol of the terrifying power of Eros, of desire. She embodies the fear that beauty is not a virtue, but a destructive force, a cosmic chaos that upends order and ruins civilization. The Greeks understood that what we desire most is often what destroys us. Her story is a warning against the madness of the heart, the way lust can blind a king to reason, drive an army to suicide, and burn a civilization to the ground. She is the face of the fatal flaw, hubris, blindness, the inability to see past the surface of beauty to the rot beneath. Yet, her legacy is also one of immortality. From the ashes of Troy rose not just a new order of heroes, but the very foundation of Western storytelling, the Ili,